Thank you so much for this introduction. Well, I'm also a trade unionist, so I'm representing workers from the agri-food systems in the EU, and Romania is quite an interesting country because we have over 1 million subsistence farmers, which are working their own land in order to live. So it's not a romantic approach of how they want to live their life. No, it is a necessity to live for them. So I think it's a relevant example. But coming back to our committee, as you have mentioned, I was rapporteur on an own initiative opinion, and I will explain what is the relevance of this type of opinion. In saying that we are supporting having a just transition in the EU agri-food systems, because we are seeing that we do have just transition mechanisms concerning other sectors, but not in the agri-food sector. So we are thinking that, and we are proposing a wide range of recommendations to the decision-making institutions in order to build a package of legislative work which is promoting more fairness in a context in which digital and climate transition is a reality. But I will mention here a couple of words concerning our committee for the ones which are not familiar with our committee. Well, we are a consultative body, and we are being consulted by the Parliament, the Council, and the Commission in the legislative decision-making process. We are being mentioned in Article 13 of the treaty, and we are working on a wide range of topics. Basically, our committee it is structured in 3 groups. We have the group 1, which is represented by the employers, the group 2, the workers, and group 3, civil society organizations. Well, the idea of this kind of structure is that we are providing balanced recommendations, meaning that when we are delivering a recommendation or a proposal, we have to negotiate with the employers, but also we as workers, for example, with the employers, but also with other civil society, which is quite challenging when we are discussing about, balancing the supply chain in the agri-food system, for example, or taxing, or how we are distributing the cost of the transitions. So basically, this is one of the most important added value of our institution is that we are providing balanced recommendations. So we are being perceived, if you allow me the term, as being organized civil society. Why? Because we are a bridge between grassroots level, meaning what the farmers in this case are asking from the Commission, and of course the Commission in this example, or other institutions, EU institutions, which are involved in the decision-making process. Now, concerning fairness, and we are entering into the topic. Of course, if you are keen to know more about our committee, you can visit our website, or I'm at your disposal for further questions. Well, I worked a lot on fairness. Being a trade unionist, for me, this concept is very close to my heart, and I have 20 years experience in working in this topic. Well, what I have known or learned so far is that it is a complex concept, and we must have a common methodology when we are discussing about fairness, because what is fair in one country is not necessarily fair in another country, and we can discuss. And some previous speakers mentioned the complexity, but also that it's a matter of how we are perceiving this. Well, I think that we do have to link the fairness concept with the societal contract and the social contract at a national level. We do have to discuss this in a way in which we are stating very clearly what we are including in this concept. Because I have read in your materials that you have 4 pillars. And we can discuss about if those pillars are appropriate or not. But we do need a common definition of fairness, because we don't have it right now at the EU level. So our proposal, in our opinion, is that we include income and living standards, of course, for farmers. You can see them on the screen. Value distribution across the entire supply chain. And this is very important because we do not have a management structure at a national level which is covering the supply chain. It's covering only part of the supply chain. And this is, of course, a huge weakness for a framework in which we want to implement a fair or a balanced approach or a legislative piece of legislation which is promoting fairness. Social justice and labor rights, we do have to include in the social aspect because the previous speakers mentioned labor rights. I can give you some examples concerning the Romanian workers and the scandals during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, which they have worked in a very I don't know how to say, in a very weak condition, or the working conditions weren't appropriate, weren't human in Germany. So they were risking their lives in order to produce, and this is important. So the labor rights are important. Then, of course, access to healthy and affordable food. Having a clear link between fairness and sustainability, it has been mentioned, equal opportunities, but also more than that. So I think that a coherent step will be to have a common approach when we're discussing about fairness. Why I'm saying this? Because fairness is not a static concept. It's a very dynamic one, and we have I have noticed this during my activity in this field. But what it is an important to have a synergical approach with the dynamicity of the situation is that we do need a balanced approach when we're discussing about economic, social, but also environmental aspect, which is not the case in this moment. And I will tell you later on. So in our opinion, we are providing some basic principles: distributive justice, recognition, participation, of course, ambition from the environmental and climate point of view, human rights, but also leaving no one behind. Because it was also a public statement, from my point of view, that leaving no one behind should be more than a slogan. Because leaving no one behind, it is a slogan in this moment. We do have member states, we do have farmers which are left behind. And this is why I think that we are having this discussion. But having some principles, it's not enough. We need to have a holistic and coordinated approach, but also an integrated policy approach. And this is, I think that you have already heard this, but the idea is that at the grassroots level, at the member state level, we do not have an integrated public administration. But we will not solve fairness without having an integrated public administration. Even if the EU institutions are asking for an integrated approach, well, the member states, some of them doesn't have capacity and capabilities to respect this. And I think this should be clearly mentioned. Well, you have some of our proposals from the opinion. Well, a fair distribution of cost, it has been already mentioned, but also resource and benefits, having a fair distribution among all the actors of the supply chain. I will not insist on this because it has been already mentioned. Well, the problem of information, it is important. It has been mentioned. But the problem is not only the availability of the information. The problem is also the capacity or the capabilities to use that information, to process that information in a way in which all the actors of the supply chain having a clear and the same level of approach, the same level of information when we are discussing, I don't know, about fairness, for example, or the fair distribution of cost. Because the small scale farmers, the subsistence farmers, doesn't have enough capability in order to process that information, or doesn't have enough tools in order to access that information. So I think this is important to be taken into account. having enough capacity and investing in capacity, it is crucially important in order to promote fairness. And of course, this should be directed to the smaller and the most vulnerable actors of the supply chain. Then I didn't heard it before, but I think it is important to mention upskilling and reskilling, but of course also education. And I'll give you a concrete example. Romania has a pool of farmers which can support the increase of the agricultural production. The problem is that in the sake of efficiency, we have closed all our schools in the rural areas which are dealing with farming activities. Not all of them, but most of them. So basically what is coming from behind, it's not supporting a long-term approach of promoting increasing of the agricultural production. So I think that having an integrated approach means to link supply chains with public services, and do not sacrifice everything in the name of efficiency. Because if we want an efficient, from the cost of point of view, educational system, well, we can do it, but we'll train not necessarily what is needed in the long term concerning rural areas. So I think this is also it has to be taken into account. Why? Because if you are doing like this, we'll leave cities, we'll leave communities, we'll leave villages behind, and we are actually doing it right now. Then what does it mean by distributive justice? Because it is a concept heard, but not necessarily coherently promoted in the public space. Well, from our point of view, means to redistribute added value, or to tax added value from the ones which have benefited the most towards the ones which have no means. And I will give you a concrete example in this sense. Well, let's look at social conditionality. We do have them under CAP right now, but it's a very weak instrument. Why? Because basically we are rewarding the employers for respecting the law. Come on, respecting the law should be an imperative at the EU level and at the member state level. So the actual, from my point of view and from our point of view, the actual social conditionality system, it's not necessarily bringing enough added value. It's not necessarily redistributing added value. It is not necessarily promoting fairness. Why? Because again, we are rewarding the employers just to respect the law. So from my point of view, it's a sort of nonsense. But anyway, this is the situation. Basically, what we are recommending is that we need a consolidation of this instrument. We need a consolidation of the social conditionality system in the next programming period. But referring to the CAP, because we must discuss also the CAP. Well, if we are looking right now, we do have different subsidies among the member states. We still have this problem. And we are discussing about fairness. Come on, in order to promote fairness, we do need the same approach when we're discussing and when we're distributing subsidies. It's a nonsense we need a synergical, or if you want to include fairness in the CAP, well, we do need same subsidies across the member states. Again, which is not the case. It's the most relevant example. Why do we need it? Well, we need it because we are promoting also unity, credibility, but also cohesion. Well, in order that those values are being funded appropriately or are being integrated in the one of the most important policy at the EU level, well, we have to address these things. And then we do have examples, and we do have instruments which can be implemented in a way in which we can address fairness more coherently in the future. We do have solidarity economy. We do have well-being society. We must support community agriculture schemes. I have I have listened earlier about the fact that shorter supply chain is a social aspect. Well, it is not a social aspect. It is also a social aspect, but it's a problem of efficiency. It's a problem of sustainability. There are also other reasons in which we want to shorten the supply chain, not necessarily the social aspect. Because from my point of view, it's very limited if you are referring to short supply chain in terms only from the social point of view. Then we do need workers and consumers cooperatives, but also we need to create employment with decent living standards. Otherwise, we will face a depopulated rural area right now. And we are seeing in many areas that, especially in Romania, but not in the east part of Europe. Why? Because the capital and the investment is moving from the east to from the west to the east, and the labor force is moving from the east to the west. And what we have saw that the EU funds, even if we are referring to the cohesion policy, or to recovery and resilience facility, or to CAP, were not able to solve this dynamic between the main important or the most important production factors. Then we do need, in order to have distributive justice in the relation with labor rights, well, we do have to consolidate the trade unions. We do have to consolidate the collective bargaining. We do have to consolidate the social dialogue in the agri-food system, which is not the case in most of the East European countries. This is why we have different perceptions concerning fairness in the East, but also in the West. I think that it is hugely important to understand that consolidating the role of trade unions and social dialogue, it is also good for our resilience as the Europeans, or for the resilience of the European society, but also for our competitiveness. Because we like it or not, right now, the social model of the EU project is one of the most advanced globally. And we do have to protect this. Why? Because otherwise we cannot discuss about fairness. And we can elaborate further on if you have any interest in this concerning the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights in the agri-food systems and so on. Mental health, well, we have saw that this is a huge problem. I'm not insist because I'm sure that you are all aware of this. Well, fair prices, because again, selling your product under the production cost, it's an offense to the basic economical theory right now. And the public institutions should be aware of it. Right now, we are seeing farmers which are doing it often. Why? Because they don't have capacity in order to have storage. They don't have enough information concerning the needs and the demand on the market, because the market is immoral, and we can elaborate further on. Then the role of the women and also the young people, it has to be consolidated in order to promote fairness. And again, closing the schools in some member states, I'm not sure if we are doing it in the long term. Then we are seeing that we are converting everything in money. And this, and sorry for this term, financialization of the agri-food systems, well, it's consolidating an unfair situation concerning the small farmers, small scale farmers. Why? Because the access to capital, it is difficult. It is not fair. Only if we are also elaborating this idea or analyzing this idea in relation with the competition principle, well, we have too much competition in this system, and we need to discuss about having a fair access to the capital. Otherwise, the medium-sized scale, but also the biggest farmers will be in the best position in accessing capital. We do need a reform of the representation process at the EU level. Why? Because we are seeing that only some interests they have a seat at the table. The subsistence farmers, I didn't saw them represented in the decision-making process at the EU level. Why? Because they are too small and they aren't prepared for the market. Well, the idea is that we are complaining that we are losing farmers, but in some member states we have millions of farmers which they know to farm, which are doing it for generations, and they are not being supported. So the representation process, how we are discussing with various interests concerning the agri-food supply chain, well, it has to be reformed in order to listen to everyone, because we will not have a balanced approach if we will listen only to the bigger ones. And then we do have speculative practices. I cannot stay silent in a situation in which when the demand is higher, we are increasing the price. We are saying, oh, yeah, this is the economical theory. Yes, but when you need water, and I'll give you a concrete example. Look at the floods in Valencia. Well, the water price has doubled during that period, and the people need water, to live. I'm not asking right now, or I'm not saying that they need water to farm. They need water to live, and the prices were double. Again, this is actually how the market is being structured. It is against, or it is not necessary taking into account the basic interest of the farmers, of course, the small scale farmers, but also our interest as a citizen, because we will need food as well during the floods, or during exceptional situations such as war and pandemic or whatever. And the last and not least, we need dedicated institutions which are promoting fairness. We do not have them. We have consultative and dialogue institutions, but we need observatories in order to promote fairness in the agri-food systems. And you can see, I will not insist, because being the last, it is important to have some space for the questions. You can see a link with our opinion, and of course you can access all the entire text of the opinion. And I'm at your disposal for further questions, even after this session, which I think is quite relevant. And thank you for taking into account our opinion and our work in our committee.